What's going on, guys? Brett and Steven with the BS Show. Happy Friday. We just concluded UFC Fight Night. Main event was Dominic Reyes against Reyes Weidman. We had a couple of fights we wanted to talk about. Overall, though, it was a very good card. The prelims were great. It was kind of odd. It was on a Friday night, but hey, it's kind of cool.
Can I just interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I just gotta say that lighting looks really good on your face. I think I'm gonna.
Oh,
Yeah, just.
way more handsome
Oh
that
my
way.
goodness!
Way more.
Wow.
Is that Brad Pitt over there? The prelims were really good, so I would recommend I think most of these go to Fight Pass after the card. A few weeks later, I would recommend watching it. There were some really good fights. Joe Lozon, an OG, got the win.
Killed it. Yeah,
had a really good win.
That was a very interesting fight too, because we don't see that position very often. He kind of had the guy's arm stuck, and he really couldn't do much. He pounded his face in.
Absolutely.
It was a very short fight, but he won in front of his hometown crowd, which is always awesome.
The fight before that, Macy Barber won. She's 8-0 now. She called out Paige Van Zandt for the 45th time.
Yeah, she's been calling out Paige Van Zandt, even hitting up her boyfriend, or husband.
And Paige Van Zandt says, I'm not going to, give her a fight, but it's not really up to her. Dana White will decide that. So anyways, the first fight we wanted to talk about was Greg Hardy. As everybody knows, he came over from the NFL. He had some domestic violence issues. Steven and I have talked on many occasions. We feel the UFC is kind of pushing him. They want him to be their next, heavyweight guy. And I will admit, though, he looked really good tonight. And I think for the first time in his really brief UFC career, he's fought a legit guy.
I think so. The guy looked good. He looked like another Roy Nelson, in my opinion.
Right.
Sassoli, was that his name?
His name was Sassoli.
Yeah. And yeah, he looked really sharp. In the beginning of that fight, I'm like, man, this guy might tag him and catch him.
And I think he did. I think he tagged him a time or two, and that's kind of whenever Hardy was like, oh,
yeah.
Smoke.
But part way through that fight, we realized, hey, Greg Hardy kind of chose to step back out of that striking range that Sassoli was good at. You know what I mean? He kind of put himself in a farther range and picked his punches a little better, came in, took his shots, and then stepped back out of that range.
Absolutely.
Because if he didn't make that game plan change, I felt like maybe he could have got caught in that fight, but that's my opinion.
Very possible. And another thing that stood out to me with Hardy was he was throwing kicks. His striking looked much better. His footwork looked much better, which, let's be real here. This dude was, I believe, an all-pro NFL athlete, so his athleticism is just off the charts.
And we've seen how far that could get you.
Right. So as he trains and works on his striking and takedown defense and footwork, he's only going to get better. But he passed the test, the first real, true MMA fighter he's fought that looks legit. He beat, I believe, unanimous decision. I don't remember, but he got the win.
Undefeated fighter, right? Was he undefeated?
I think he was undefeated,
He was on Tough. People are going to say he's just another tomato can or whatnot, but I feel like it was a real test, someone that is around the same level as Greg Hardy. So I give props to Greg Hardy on that one. You know what I mean? His punching looked much crisper. We've seen him in the past. He kind of just gets in there and brawls and uses his athleticism to get him through the fight. This time, he kind of stood back and picked his shots and fought a smart fight, in my opinion.
He did. He looked, the eye test to me, he passed. He looks way better than what he did.
Agreed.
So let's move forward to the eye poke fight. We got Yair Rodriguez against Jeremy Stephens. A lot of bad blood.
Let's start at the weigh-ins, though.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I was so happy with their weigh-ins. We had Jeremy Stephens walking out with the snowboarding glasses on, so he wouldn't get poked in the eyes. I thought that was hilarious. And then after they faced off, we had Yair Rodriguez trimming his fingernails. I just thought all that was fun, and it built the hype of the fight.
Right.
The hype of this fight was more than it was when they were supposed to fight in Mexico.
I think the hype of this fight was more than the main event of this card.
I agree.
Everybody wanted to see Yair versus Stephens.
And usually the fight doesn't live up to the hype, but this time I felt like it very much did.
Yep, I agree totally with that. And the one takeaway that I have from this fight, which is not a surprise, but I will admit, although Yair really upset us the way he handled that thing, that dude has got every tool in the tool belt you could need. Kicks, punches, footwork. That guy is so flashy. He's so fast. He throws a kick so fast you don't even see what's coming. Body shots. That's what knocked down Jeremy Stephens.
He's so fun to watch. He really is. And he's just a sharp striker. He's one of the most, I don't want to say technical because, no, I will say technical, but he's also flashy and unique with the strikes.
Right.
You don't really know what's coming.
Unique is a good way to put it. Unique, because he was throwing just stuff that you're like, where do you even think of throwing that? Like, right now you're going to throw that, but what he does is he always keeps his opponent guessing. And Jeremy Stephens, you could tell he was backing up because he didn't know, is he going to punch, is he going to kick, head kick, leg kick? Well, then he started landing these body shots. Yep. A body shot put Stephens down. I thought the fight was going to get stopped. It probably would have stopped anybody else, but Jeremy Stephens is tough as nails.
He rode it out in that second round when he did get catch to the body. And we were both yelling at the TV because Jeremy Stephens, I felt like he kind of didn't fight his fight. He was on his back foot when really, when you fight a striker that's technical, you can't let him set up their shots like that.
Absolutely
He should have been putting Yair on his back foot, and as we see in the third round, when he did put Yair on his back foot, he actually started winning that fight, got a takedown, and dominated the third round, but the first 2 rounds were already done, and by that point, the fight was over.
Well, and that's where fights like this, the 3-round fights, don't benefit a guy like Jeremy Stephens. I think if this was a 5-round fight, Jeremy figured it out. He goes, oh, I got to do this, and then that would have benefited him. But in a 3-round fight, you only got 3 rounds. I feel like Jeremy should have put the pressure on him, put him on his back foot, because we see it all the time with great strikers, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Donald Cerrone, Yair Rodriguez. If you let them pick their shots, you're going to lose. There's just no way around it. So Yair looked great. I thought Jeremy Stephens, once he kind of figured out what Yair was going to do, he looked good. But Yair is a dude to be reckoned with in that weight division.
Dude, and he's tricky. He really is. He only has 2 losses. Frank Yeager, I don't know who his other losses to, but I mean, he's only lost to like elite competition. Frank Yeager, when he lost to Frank Yeager too, it was when Frank Yeager was at like the pinnacle. Yeah. He was like dominant. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Well, and he learned a lot from that. Frank Yeager, that was a doctor stoppage, right? Didn't he? I think he blew up his eye or something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So he's learned a lot, and I think Yair, he looked pretty good on the ground. What little Jeremy Stephens did on the ground, he was able to stop Jeremy Stephens from doing any ground and pound. I mean, very minimal at least. So I think Yair, he's going to be a dude. Watch out for the 145-pound division.
Yep, and we gave him a lot of we smack talked a little against Yair because of how he acted after their first fight, if you want to call it a fight. But I mean, they showed a lot of hospitality after the fight. They showed a lot of respect, and I'm a fan of Yair. I always have been, but it left the sour taste in my mouth after that Mexico card.
Right.
But now he's back in my good graces.
And I will admit, too, everything that I said leading up to this fight, I meant. I felt like he handled himself poorly.
Definitely.
I felt like everything that he did was uncalled for. But you got to call a spade a spade. The dude can fight. And he's going to be a dude to be reckoned with.
And he's fun to watch, for sure.
Oh, very fun to watch. So let's move on to the main event. We got Dominic Reyes against Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman, the former middleweight champion, moved up to the light heavyweight division. First time fighting there against a young killer in Dominic Reyes, who's undefeated. So Steven and I both picked Dominic Reyes to win that fight.
Going into this fight, we both made 2 arguments. Brett made the argument we've never seen. Chris Weidman isn't that great of a striker, and he might not be able to handle a striker as good, elite caliber as Dominic Reyes, right? And I made the argument, but we've never seen Dominic Reyes handle as elite of caliber as
like wrestling and
Weidman,
defense,
you know? So we got to see the clash, and Reyes handled the wrestling pretty well. Got taken down once, got up. It was up against the fence, so it's a little bit easier, you know what I mean? And then when Weidman tried to get under the butt, Reyes was doing a good job of grinding his arms up against the cage and breaking that grip.
Right.
So very smart and very aware of Reyes to understand what he needs to do in those type of situations when he might be taken down. So that shows some. It makes me more confident in his wrestling, his takedowns, defense, and all that. And as we thought, on the feet, Reyes got the best of Weidman.
Absolutely. And I think it's very easy whenever you're looking at a fight and you're trying to break down a fight or give an analysis to compartmentalize things. Like, oh, he's a black belt, he's a blue belt. But it doesn't always work like that.
No, it doesn't.
There's so many factors to look at when you're looking at a UFC fight. That's why MMA is great. It's mixed martial arts. Everything comes into play. You know, if this was a strict grappling match, yeah, Weidman would wipe the floor with Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes is a blue belt. You have Chris Weidman, who's a black belt. He's an All-American wrestler. Well, duh. But that's not the way it works out. And Dominic Reyes, I mean, very clearly shown his striking, showed his reach, stuffed the takedown. Weidman, you know, it happened so fast. I don't want to say Weidman looked outclassed because whenever it happens that fast, it's hard to say. But you just kind of felt like there was just two different levels there. That's how I felt. And I just feel like I said in our video prior, whenever you get guys that start jumping weight classes, it's just, you know, you don't know where their head's at. And
especially when you're jumping that weight class at 35 years old.
Right.
You know, and you're fighting, I think Dominic Reyes is still pretty young.
He's like in his mid to late 20s, 26 or later. I don't remember. But Reyes is a legit contender. And I started looking at people he beat.
If he doesn't get the next title shot versus John Jones, I'm gonna be upset.
Well,
because I felt like he deserved it for a while.
I think he deserves it. Here's my only thing that I think Dana White might do: Johnny Walker against Reyes.
You know, I'm not mad at that fight.
For a title shot against John Jones. Because
Johnny Walker, he has a fight coming up, right?
I'm sure he does.
So he has to win that fight.
He got to win that fight. So you got two young up-and-comers who were just blasting through everybody.
And who has Johnny Walker really beat? Because Dominic Reyes has been on like
Dominic Reyes has beat a much more high-name, high-caliber fighter. So if we look at Dominic Reyes' last 5 fights, he's beat Volkan Ozdemir, Ovince St. Preux, or Pruix, Jared Cannonier, Jeremy Kimball, and Joachim Christensen. He's won by TKO, submission, TKO, decision, and then he obviously just TKO'd.
And shout
Chris
out to
Weidman.
Wikipedia, because the fight literally just ended 15 minutes ago, and they already got the win over Chris Weidman up there.
Yep.
So
my point being made is OSP had a title shot against John Jones. Volkan Ozdemir
had a title shot,
and he was the guy that
DC,
they thought this dude was going to be the next best thing. Jared Cannonier just beat Hermanson, who they thought was in a sprint to get a title shot. So, you know, Dominic Reyes has beat some perennial contenders, and not that are old. Like, they're in the right now. They're up and comers. So Dominic Reyes obviously deserves a title shot. My only rebuttal would be, hey, put him and Johnny Walker together and give them the title shot.
Now, we're going to end it right here, but I got a couple questions for you. I got 2 questions for you guys. One, do you guys think Chris Weidman should have retired tonight, or should he retire in general? Should he take a couple more fights, see what happens? Or should he just call it quits because he's getting 35? He's 35 years old. He's getting up there. I mean, he's past his prime, in my opinion. What do you think?
I think he's past his prime. I think he's got a lot of miles, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, fighting. And it's just, as a fighter...
He's 1-5 in his last 6 fights, too. So
as a fighter, you have to have confidence, and I don't think he has it. You have to go into that octagon knowing you're going to win, and he does not have that.
And number 2, Johnny Walker or Dominic Reyes. I know Johnny Walker's had a lot of flashy knockouts, fun knockouts. I mean, the guy's just fun to watch. He's an entertainer. He comes out dancing. I mean, he's just a fan favorite already. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Dominic Reyes is the real deal, and I feel like he's a little more proven in my eyes. But I want to know what you guys think.
Right. I think that's a great point. You know, Dominic Reyes has the fighters to back it. Johnny Walker looks really good, though.
He does.
And they're both long. They're both rangy. They're both young, undefeated.
Strikers. Fun to watch.
And what type of fighters have given John Jones problems? The long, rangy strikers, you know. So that's that. And it was a great night of fights, guys. I highly recommend you looking into it. You know, tune in. We're going to be doing a lot more videos on upcoming fights. There's a lot of big fight cards. So, you know, let us know if you want to break down a fight. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.
Peace.